Everything about Jesus' life and ministry is special, but Luke chapter 7, verses 1 to 10 is unique. Why do I say that? Because according to verse 9, after he has the conversation with the centurion, it says, when Jesus heard this, he marveled at him. There is a centurion. A centurion was a mid-level officer in the Roman army who oversaw 100 soldiers. Thus, centurion, century, 100. He had a servant who got ill. He got sick and was about to die. It says that the centurion heard about Jesus. Word had gotten out that this Jesus is something else. The blind see, the lame walk, the dumb talk. I mean, it's just this Jesus is blowing folks' minds with what he's doing. So he sends a couple of Jewish leaders to ask Jesus to come and save his servant who's about to die. Now, that's unusual within itself because the Jews hated the Romans. But this Roman was cut in different cloth because the Jewish leaders said, he loves our nation, and he even went into his pocket to build our synagogue. This guy is different. There's a great lesson there, and that is, just don't judge people because they belong to a certain group. And you ought to help him. You ought to save his servant. So Jesus is now on his way to the centurion's house, who has made a prayer request. Save my servant's life. So far, so good. Jesus is on his way. He's gotten the prayer request. Looks like the answer is on the way. However, before Jesus gets to the house, the centurion sends a message. He says, in the end of verse 6, I am not worthy for you to come under my roof. Don't come any further. He sends some of his friends and says, tell Jesus, don't come any closer. I'm not worthy. So one of the things we need to note as we get into this is this centurion, he may have had a lot of money, may have had a lot of clout, but in the presence of Jesus, he was a nobody. So this highfalutin centurion understood, he knew his place in the presence of Jesus. He says, don't come to my house. I'm not worthy for you to come. But wait a minute, you just asked him to come. You just asked him to come save your servant. But now you're telling him not to come. Or well, what do you want him to do? The centurion says, he says, I'm not worthy, verse 7, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. The key to this whole story is verse 8. I need to read it again. For I also am a man placed under authority, with soldiers under me, and I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my slave, do this, and he does it. Now when Jesus heard this, he marveled. What was Jesus saying that he wants us to say or think or do that will blow his mind? Let's parse this. I am also a man under authority. Let's back up to one word. Also. I am also a man under authority. When you use the word also, you mean like something else. I am like something else, or in this case, I am like someone else. I am also a man under authority. Well, who is he talking to and who is he talking about? He's talking about Jesus. He says, Jesus, I'm like you. I am just like you. I am a man under authority. Why does he say that? Word has gotten out about Jesus doing all these miracles. You are also. You're pulling all this off because there's somebody over you allowing you to do it. You are under authority. I also. Jesus Christ in his humanity operated not by virtue of his deity, but by virtue of his submission. Jesus says in chapter 5 of John, verse 19, these words, therefore Jesus answered and said unto them, truly, truly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing of himself, unless it is something he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, these things the Son also does in like manner. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself is doing. And the Father will show him greater works than these, so that you may, catch this word, marvel. I just want to know, before we go any further, is there anybody here with guts to shock God? Everything Jesus did, he did in submission to his Father. And because of Jesus, God the Son was perfectly submitted to his Father, he got miracles done. I am also a man underneath authority, just like you, Jesus. And when I tell folk what to do who are under me, they do it. Okay? I don't want you to miss this. The reason why I'm over is because I'm under. The reason why I can tell folk, the 100 guys underneath me and my servants, what to do is because I got some folk over me telling me what to do. I'm under authority. Therefore, I can speak with authority to those who are underneath me. He uses the word authority. So let me give you the principle and then break it down further, because this is a principle that will give you access to the miraculous. You cannot exercise legitimate authority over what you're supposed to be over unless you learn to be under what God has put over you. If you're not under what God has put under you, you can't ask God to help you to deal with stuff that's underneath you. If you are out of alignment with that which is legitimately supposed to be over you, you lose heaven's authority to be able to boss situations that's supposed to be under you. If you rebel against the authority up here is not going to help you with your situation down there. I am a man under authority, but I'm over stuff because I tell stuff what to do. I tell them go, they go, stay, they stay. I tell stuff what to do, and the reason I can tell stuff what to do is because I tell them what to do because something's over me telling me what to do. The centurion says, you don't have to come. All you have to do is speak the word, because I know how authority works. And like you, I know all this stuff you pulling off down here on earth, that is now you controlling diseases, you controlling demons, you controlling people, you controlling circumstance. I know how you doing that, Jesus. You doing that because you are perfectly aligned with the Father, and I know how that works in the military. So you don't have to come here. you cannot have authority over, until and unless you are submitted under. And because most people do not understand this theological principle of authority, prayers don't get answered because the prayers are being prayed out of alignment. That we're not properly under what we should be under, or we're not properly over what we ought to be over, or both. And once you are misaligned in God's kingdom program, what you have done is cut the cord of the transfer of authority. The centurion says, because I know how this thing works, you don't even have to come here. Just talk. Because I know you're operating under, in Jesus' case, perfect authority. The Bible makes it clear that Satan is supposed to be under the believer's feet. Romans 6:20. Crush Satan under your feet. Under the foot means to be under the authority of. You put your foot on somebody, you hold them down. It says Satan is to be under our feet, that is, subject to our authority. In Luke chapter 9, verse 1, we read this verse. And he called the 12 together and gave them power and authority over all the demons and to heal diseases. Guess how they got authority? He gave it. He gave it so they had it. They had it over the very things that was trying to have them. He knew Jesus' access to God. Jesus said, all authority is given to me in heaven and on earth, Matthew 28:18. All authority, I'm in charge now. So the alignment to Jesus Christ is critical if you want heaven to join you in history. If Jesus can't overrule you, you're not under authority. This alignment thing is critical because it is how authority flows. He makes a request and the centurion says, I know how this deal works. You're under your daddy's authority. That's why you can pull all of this off. So since you're under his authority and I know how authority works, you speak the word, because if you speak it, it's going to happen because you're only going to speak it because your daddy approved it. And you will change things on earth, in this case, the servant. In Colossians chapter 3, kind of breaks it down into some categories. Let me review some of these categories real quick with you. Beginning with verse 17, we read in Colossians 3, whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through him to God the Father. So do it under Jesus' authority. Then he starts breaking it down. Wives, be subject to your own husbands as is fitting to the Lord. If you as a wife are out of alignment with your husband's legitimate authority, keyword legitimate, then you are out of alignment with God. And if you're out of alignment with your husband's legitimate authority and therefore out of alignment with God, you cannot then go and ask God for help. He goes on, he says, husbands, love your wives, do not be embittered against them. 1 Peter 3 verse 7 says, husbands, treat your wives with equal honor so your prayers are not hindered. You are underneath authority, the Bible says. And if Jesus, the man of all men, had to be under his Father's authority, what makes a man think that he can be independent of Jesus' authority? That makes you a male rebel. He goes on and says, children, be obedient to your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing to the Lord. The reason why you should teach your children to obey is not just because you're their parents. Of course they should, because you're their parent, but because they want to make God happy. Because when they make God happy, God will even answer their prayers. Because they have come under the legitimate authority not wrong authority, but legitimate authority of their parents. In fact, when Ephesians talks about this, he says, and tell the children, this will help to enable them to live long on the earth. Then he comes to parent. He says in verse 21, fathers, do not exacerbate your children so that they will lose heart. That's a parent. The reason why he says fathers, by the way, is in the Bible, men are supposed to raise the children, not the women. Okay, now I'm talking about the culture, I'm talking about the Bible. Ephesians chapter 6 verse 4 says, fathers, raise your children. All the time it's the father who raises the children. When you say, well, what's the woman supposed to do? One word, help. Slaves, in all things, verse 22 says, obey those who are your masters on earth. We would say today, employees, obey your employers, not with external service or as those who merely please men, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord. When you go to work, verse 23, whatever you do, do your work heartily as for the Lord rather than for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance. It is the Lord Christ who you serve. You don't whistle while you work, you worship while you work. It says when you go to work for the Lord. You don't only work for the man, you work for the Lord. You're to look at that job as pleasing the Lord. So don't steal from the Lord when you go to work. Because he says it's from the Lord Christ who will reward you. So if you are a bad employee, you're going to be an unanswered prayer person. He goes on and he talks about employers, chapter 4, verse 1. Masters, these are the ones over the servants. Grant to your slaves justice and fairness, knowing that you too have a master in heaven. You see the authority? Masters, be fair and just. You can't abuse your employees. You can't misuse your employees. And the reason why you don't mistreat your employees is because you're not the only master. Chapter 4 verse 1 says, remember you have a master. So if you're going to be over, you better be under. Be under your master if you're going to be the right kind of master and get the right kind of service and benefit and blessing in your company. Do you really want to see heaven do stuff that will blow your mind because you didn't shock Jesus? Whoa. Because I've come under and now I have authority legitimately over. To see God invade things that look like they're dying. The servant was dying. Anybody got any dying situations? He's just dying. Well, you need to make sure your alignment is straight so you can shock Jesus. What does Jesus say about this man? Jesus is stupefied, and in chapter 7 he says, when Jesus heard this, he marveled at him, and he turned and said to the crowd who was following. So now he's talking to everybody who's there. So it's like me talking to you. He turns to the crowd. He says, did you see that? I say to you, not even in Israel have I found such great faith. I got an uncircumcised Gentile who's got more faith than my church folk, than Israel. I got somebody who doesn't even understand theology on a broad scope who's got more faith. So the question is, who you identifying with? You better identify with somebody who's in alignment, because they're the one who have access to authority in prayer. Because it was a prayer. He said, come heal my servant. That's a prayer request. It says in verse 10, when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the slave in good health. Not when Jesus didn't go to the crib. Jesus didn't go to the house. When the ones he sent came back to the house, the servant is healed. Okay? Now I want you to miss this. Jesus is on his way. The centurion sends some guy, tell him, don't come here, I'm not worthy. But if he'll just talk, speak the word, that'd be good enough, because I know how this authority thing works. Jesus is shocked, and he says, wow, what kind of faith is this? This is some kind of faith. I'm just stupefied. They go back, and the man is healed. The servant is healed. So what's my point? Jesus believes in long distance prayer answers, because he's not physically there. He didn't physically go to the house. He just sent the word to the house, even though he was absent from the location. Now, you have to understand, all the other miracles Jesus did, he was there. Now, why do you need to know that now? Because he's not here. But the good news is, he does long distance prayer answers. He doesn't have to be here to get stuff done. That's why I love Hebrews chapter 7, verse 25, which says, Jesus, our great high priest, ever lives as an intercessor for believers. He ever lives to invade our circumstance, and he doesn't have to be here to get it done.